Welcome to the show. I'm Jason Whitlock, and I'll tell you how Big Ben is trying to get Mike Tomlin fired.
And I'm Colin Cowherd, and I'll tell you why the Jags just made a huge mistake before their showdown with the Patriots. Speak for yourself on a Tuesday. Starts right now.
It's my Monday. It's your Tuesday.
3 football games left in our world.
I know. I'm going to cry this weekend. All right, hello and welcome. We're joined today by Fox NFL analyst Tony Gonzalez and Mark Schlereth. Let's start in Pittsburgh, where the Steelers' season came to an end Sunday after a disappointing loss to the Jags. During the game, Pittsburgh failed to convert 2 crucial 4th-and-1 situations, but when Ben Roethlisberger was asked why he didn't run a quarterback sneak on either play, he actually put the blame on his coaches.
I truly have never said I don't want to run it, and I don't have the freedom to check the quarterback sneak because we don't have that call if we're not in the huddle. I've actually asked Coach Tomlin when we get to like the 2-yard line, 2-point play, to spread the defense out, go empty, and run quarterback draw. I've asked for that.
Yeah.
He laughs at me and says, Ben, maybe in your younger days, not now.
So that
I still ask for those things. I would love the quarterback sneak. I hopefully will get into more of it. It's really, like I said, we can call it in the huddle, but there's no way for me to audible to it without telling guys, hey, quarterback sneak. Like,
Yeah.
I hope the defensive line didn't hear us, you know?
That's one of the best things about that guy. His will is continually on display, particularly at those critical moments, man. He wants to be the guy. He wants to be the reason why. I work to not stifle that. I encourage that. I appreciate that. But then we make decisions that we deem appropriate in circumstances.
All right, that was Big Ben and Tomlin today. This isn't the first time Ben has put his coaches on blast, calling them out in the press multiple times over the past couple of seasons. Cowherd, seems clear to me, Big Ben wants Tomlin out of there.
There is no question. We've been on this for a couple of years. Listen, if Drew Brees said that about Sean Payton, or if Brady said that about Belichick, it would be shocking. This is the 7th time he's gone public on this. Like, these are not small comments. They're not even subtle. They're not nuanced. They're like, yeah, I'm for the quarterback sneak. The other guy did the other thing. Like this, but Tomlin is in a very unique situation. There's about 6 bulletproof coaches in the world. Saban, Belichick, Coach K, not many of them. Urban Meyer. Tomlin feels like one of them.
He does. Listen, I think Big Ben is making it crystal clear. He has a problem with this coaching staff, Tomlin, and I think Todd Haley as well. Last year, he tried the ploy of, I may just retire. This may be it. Every guy got to think. So he was trying to tell the organization, that didn't work. So now he's come back this year. I'm going to play 3 or 4 more years. So I'm going to be here. So if you fire the coach, I'll be here for the next 3 or 4 years with the coach. He tried one route last offseason. Now he's going this route this offseason. The Pittsburgh Steelers organization can bury their head in the sand if they want to, but there is a disconnect between this quarterback who is an all-time great and a head coach who's won a Super Bowl, has a chance to be great but hasn't proven it. There's a disconnect here that they need to make a decision on.
there's a lack of continuity. There's a lack of believability between players and the coach, it would seem. It would appear. You look at just the quarterback sneaks this weekend. Drew Brees had a critical quarterback sneak. Yep. Tom Brady had a critical quarterback sneak. Ben Roethlisberger hasn't run a quarterback sneak since 2014. And previous to 2014, he was 18 of 19 on QB sneaks. Like, I don't understand why you're running a pitch play on 4th down in inches against a speed defense with corners who can run support. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me, or throwing the ball in that situation. Herm Edwards used to say this to me all the time, and I believe it. You're either coaching it or allowing it to happen. They have an undisciplined football team. This week alone, Mike Tomlin talked about he's talked about the rematch of the New England Patriots. Mitchell was talking about rematch of the New England Patriots and how we can play him anywhere. We're going to beat them this time. And then, they asked Le'Veon Bell about his contract situation. He goes in depth about missing next season. Like, last time I checked, it was really about, hey, the contract will take care of itself when that time comes. Right now, the appropriate thing to be talking about is the Jacksonville Jaguars, and nobody seemed to be talking about that in Pittsburgh. That to me, starts at the top, and if you don't control that with your players, and that's on you as a coach.
I try to put myself in Coach Tomlin's position where Ben Roethlisberger, you know his history. He's always been the guy who's like, I broke toes, I got ribs injuries, I don't know about this, so why would I want to run you on a quarterback sneak? I understand it. Obviously, I would put Big Ben because it works, and that's a great stat that you came up with. But to me, the Pittsburgh Steelers, everything about it screams reality television show. A highly rated reality television show where you got the actors and you got the people fighting, but it still rates well. It still does well. So if you're an ownership, from the ownership standpoint, 13-3 this year. Yes, they got their butts whooped this past weekend, but I just don't understand why you break the band up when the music is playing so well right now.
But it's not just that Big Ben, this is a little conspiracy theory, but Big Ben didn't trash Tomlin after the game. But he waits for reaction from the media, and Tomlin gets clobbered. And then Big Ben comes out today.
More gas on the fire.
And more gas on the fire. It's not just that he criticizes Tomlin. He waited, because Tomlin's fairly bulletproof. The media doesn't call him out. This is one of the first times Mike's under fire, and Big Ben jumped on it this morning. I think that's the sign to me he wants him out.
But Tony, I'll say this, and you're right, it does rate well during the regular season. But the Pittsburgh Steelers are built to win championships. That organization, 3 head coaches in 50 years, and since they appeared in their last Super Bowl, they're 3-6 in the postseason.
They're 36-8 against Ohio. The Browns and Bengals do them big favors. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. They beat up on the state of Ohio.
And so, again, my question about the Steelers organization, it gets a lot of credit. It's the perfectly run organization, only 3 head coaches. But they've never really ever turned their franchise over to the coach, no matter how successful. It runs from ownership down. The Rooneys run that franchise. And so Todd Haley's dad, Dick Haley, was in their personnel department. And so the organization decided, we'd like Todd Haley to be our offensive coordinator. That wasn't a Mike Tomlin decision. And so I think it's hard to be a chief when the organization never selects a chief. Well, the Rooney family is the chief, and so I guess I'm giving Tomlin a bit of a pass for not ruling with an iron fist, is because I don't think they've given him the iron.
Well, that may be true, but when you have that kind of talent, here's the problem. I mean, you look at that roster. You look at all-pro at center, all-pro at guard, a Pro Bowler at left tackle. You've got an all-pro running back. You've got wide receivers, playmakers galore. Now, defensively, obviously they had some injury issues on the defense, but you went out and got Hayden to combat, the New England Patriots and to play some man coverage. You've done those things. You've drafted that way. There is way too much talent. I mean, 13-3 tells you how much talent there is to have that kind of dysfunction, because in my mind, you should have been playing in the Super Bowl on several different occasions as opposed to watching it since 2008.
Well, something that really jumped out at me is that the Jags were 5 for 5 in the red zone. It's not that Tomlin doesn't do certain things well, but because Belichick is his arch rival in the AFC, we know Belichick to be so detail-oriented, tremendous situational coaching. If Bortles goes 5 for 5 in the red zone, that feels like a lapse of situational football. The onside kick, execution poorly done. Is part of Tomlin's issue is that his rival is the greatest detail-minded coach of all time, and when compared in that light, he looks weak. That Tomlin's actually okay, but the Belichick comparisons.
Well, again, you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're one of the proudest franchises, particularly in the modern NFL, that there is. But I'll say this, detail-oriented, or does Belichick have more control over the Patriots than perhaps any coach in football? And Tomlin just doesn't have that kind of control. When the organization says, you know what, Dick LeBeau, we want you to move on. Bruce Arians, we want you to move on.
The organization has nothing to do with you deciding to kick an onside kick with 2 minutes and change left over, and 2 timeouts, because the odds of, I think it's a 12% chance. I think it's a 12% chance of getting that onside kick. The 3 and out, your chances of a 3 and out are much better.
The kind of coach that doesn't make that mistake is a control freak, is a detail-oriented, I control everything. They don't make that mistake. But when you're the Steelers and you want a coach that you control, he's not going to be a detail-oriented guy by personality. He's going to allow others to make decisions and to make gut reaction decisions because he's not a control freak.
But we've had Joey Porter as a coach out of control, Todd Haley. He is responsible to some degree to the looseness. By the way, Chuck Noll was the coach. They weren't loose then. Cowherd was the coach. They weren't loose then. Some of this may just be Mike's personality. He's not a micromanager. I mean, they've been a very rigid team, haven't they?
Let's go ahead.
Real quick, you brought that up. The team, at least the teams I've always been on, and I think you know this, you are a reflection of your head coach. And so the tumultuous relationships that they're having, I'd see that. That's Tomlin. That's who we see on the sideline. Yeah. You see him in the post conferences after the game. That's who he is, and I think that just carries over to the field. And like I said, it's just reality television at its best. And if I'm the ownership, I'm keeping it in place until I have a losing season.
I'm sorry to do this at the end of the conversation because it's like the big elephant in the room, but he's a black coach, and there's the Rooney Rule. And so they're a bit handcuffed. The Rooney Rule is from Pittsburgh. They are the organization that's going to show everybody how diversity works, and we're the organization that can support a black coach. And so, again, when you start talking about bulletproof, that's probably why he's bulletproof. If it was the Bob Kraft rule, perhaps Pittsburgh would be free to say, you know what, we kind of side with Big Ben and we think we can do better and put some pressure on him. But because it's the Rooney Rule and the guys won a Super Bowl, maybe he has a bit more freedom, and maybe the Steelers are going to allow this friction between their all-time great quarterback and this head coach to just continue, and they'll continue to underachieve.
But nobody on this set is denying this is clearly Big Ben taking a shot at Tomlin. I mean, that's not deniable, right?
I think he wants Tomlin gone.
Oh, I totally agree.
He doesn't have the freedom. You saw Terry Bradshaw said cheerleader and the world exploded. If Big Ben puts his name on quietly underneath, Big Ben, he doesn't want to deal with the fallout of that. Again, the Rooney Rule, and it's hard to take on a black coach with a Super Bowl title. If I'm the organization, I come in strongly and try to really force some peace between Big Ben and Mike Tomlin, put some pressure on Tomlin, and try to make this has got to work better. Big Ben should not leave the NFL.
Have you noticed, as Ben has aged and probably matured, he's getting less tolerant of the young players' actions. Ben, because Tomlin's always been a kind of an emotional loose guy. Ben, for 6-7 years, didn't talk about that. But as quarterbacks age, there's a generational gap. And
he's got an ego, though, too, Colin. You think he's happy sitting around? Tom Brady's the greatest of all time.
Right.
Big Ben's got an ego that says, you know what?
Big Ben looks at how much talent they have and say, you know what? Well, we've won 2 Super Bowls. One, I was young, and I was awful in that game against the Seahawks, right? That was the Jerome Bettis Super Bowl in Detroit. And one should have been the MVP. They gave it to Santonio Holmes, but Ben drove them down the field, avoided a couple sacks. I mean, he was phenomenal, made that throw in the end zone.
Welcome back. Tony Gonzalez, Mark Schlereth here. Let's move to Minnesota, where the Vikings players are still in shock after that incredible last-second win over the Saints Sunday. Adam Thielen saying, quote, "We just still can't believe it." Well, they better wrap their heads around it because they head to Philadelphia for Sunday's NFC Championship game against a resurgent Eagles team. Whitlock, you worried about a Vikings letdown after a miracle ending?
Yeah, I really am. And I say that because I'm just a football fan, and I couldn't sleep Sunday night replaying that game and that ending. It's Tuesday, and I'm still thinking about it. I couldn't imagine if I'm Stephon Diggs, anybody on the Vikings team. You're on such a high, there has to be a little bit of a letdown, and then to refocus on what's ahead whenever the whole city of Minneapolis and the whole state of Minnesota is still celebrating what you're doing. No one talks about it, but it's like the Immaculate Reception. The next week, Pittsburgh got beat by Miami.
Yeah, good stuff.
That is almost always the truth. Like Jacksonville beat Pittsburgh. That's the biggest win for them in a decade. There's a real chance they'll be flat. There is a chance. The only thing I would say why Minnesota wouldn't be flat is they really are the Eagles. They're defensive-led, both backup quarterbacks, overcome big injuries. And by the way, Philadelphia won in the last couple of plays, too. It's not like they didn't have a dramatic upset win. So I kind of feel like both these teams, they're the same thing. We're looking at the same team. Defense-led, backup quarterback, dealt with injuries.
Minnesota's the best team in football, in my opinion.
I agree.
And
they're at home.
Yeah.
No, they're not. They're on the road. My bad.
You know, I look at it like 2012 playoffs and the Ravens. Remember the last-minute play, 70 yards, I think it was 70 yards to Jacoby Jones, and Raheem Moore goes up and just completely misplays the ball.
Yeah.
And the rest is history. They go on to win, and it was like the catalytic event that pushed them towards a world championship. Remember, Flacco was great after that.
Yes.
I almost feel the same way about the Minnesota Vikings. You almost feel like, man, we're the team of destiny now because we made that play. And I almost feel like that can propel you into the Super Bowl. You're going to be able to play the Super Bowl at home in your home stadium. I mean, think about it. I just think it's one of those situations that maybe it's the best thing that could have happened to you because it's the one thing that you lean back on and go, we're meant for this. This is our year.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Mark, there. I mean, because obviously, as we were all watching the game, we all thought that thing was over. When you get that high, that's when you come in. I've never had a miraculous ending like this, but we've had come from behind type wins. And that's when you go into the locker room on that Monday and you're looking at each other in the eye and you're like, okay, we got one more game to go. We almost let it slip away. We're a team of destiny right now. There's something on our side. But I love that stat that you brought up about them losing after the immaculate reception.
I'm a Steeler fan, and I completely forgot they lost the AFC Championship to Miami.
You think they won the Super Bowl, and they didn't. But again, the reason why I'm a little bit concerned, and if they do lose, I think it will be because of an emotional letdown. But to me, they are the best team. And I think of the two backup quarterbacks, Case Keenum is better than Nick Foles.
Oh, clearly.
And so, unless there's something crazy with the weather in Philadelphia, and I don't think there will be, I think Minnesota's going to score enough points, and I think they're going to shut down that Philadelphia offense as long as there's not some crazy emotional letdown.
And also, Mike Zimmer now has been in 11 games, either head coach or coordinator, these playoff games. And you look at this Minnesota team, I believe it's the best roster. When I look at Philadelphia, I'm still not absolutely sure Doug Peterson's the right guy.
I liked him this week.
No, I liked I thought their defensive, Jim Schwartz, I thought the defensive play calling was great late.
Look at how they got
I thought they
Foles
managed
playing.
Foles. I mean, Foles in the first quarter was like, I was watching it like this. Oh, no. And
they started doing that run-pass thing, and it worked for him.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if the Minnesota defense is going to allow it.
Well, usually when I look at teams that have those letdowns the next week, usually it's on the offensive side of the ball. And they're a defensive-led team, talking about the Minnesota Vikings. So I would look for them. You could always lean on defense. Just be physical and go out there and hit them in the mouth. And they can do that. You can take that anywhere you want. That travels. Defenses travel. Offense is that's a little bit tougher because of weather and all that stuff.
Let's move to New England, where the Patriots are back in the AFC Championship. Isn't this amazing? 7th straight year hosting a Jags team that hasn't been there since 1999. Even still, that didn't stop Jags talker, verbal corner Jalen Ramsey from making a bold prediction.
I ain't got too much to say, but y'all make sure y'all bring that same energy out here next week and the week after. We going to the Super Bowl, and we going to win that. We gonna win that.
What I've learned over a long time is it's how you play and it's not what you say. And I think everyone has different ways of handling things. Coaches do, players do. We do what works for us. Those are other players that work for them. And the game's going to be decided by who plays the best, not who hypes the best or speaks the best. He's a really good player. I've watched a ton of film on him. He's got a lot of strengths, and he's obviously very confident. That's reflected in how he plays. So, I'm more concerned about how he plays as opposed to what he says.
All right, Whitlock, will the Jags regret trash talking before their showdown with the Patriots?
Probably. I don't get it. Everybody wants to be Joe Namath instead of Tom Brady. Joe Namath won 1 Super Bowl and predicted it. And Tom Brady's won 5 by keeping his mouth shut and just showing up one game at a time and handling his business. I think it's a good matchup for the Jaguars, but if you go look at what Pittsburgh did to them and what Big Ben did to them and Antonio Brown on one leg and Juju Smith and Bryant, you know, Jalen Ramsey and the Jags defense did not play well this past Sunday, and they're going to face the ultimate test in Tom Brady. Steelers got more weapons, but they ain't got Tom Brady.
Ever notice why Tom Brady does a Monday radio hit at WEEI Radio in Boston? His wife is worth $400 million. He's worth $200 million. Why would he do a radio hit on Monday morning? To set the tone. Jalen Ramsey's the best player they have. He set the tone. His tone's cocky. Tom Brady does that every Monday he goes on EEI Radio. And there's a reason for it. He doesn't need the money. He didn't want to wake up early. He is taking Belichick's message to the masses. He is setting the tone for the week. Ramsey just set the tone. And the tone is the best player in the room is like, we're going all the way to the Super Bowl. It's what Mike Tomlin did. Remember in the regular season? Yeah. He set the tone for the week. Bengals coming up, let's talk Patriots. I think it's an issue.
The problem with the tone he set was we're going to win this week and then we're going to win next week. Well, next week is the Pro Bowl. So you can win the Pro Bowl all you want. It's about winning a world championship. I remember this 2013, and Ryan Clark's a good friend of mine. Ryan Clark talked about in 2013, like in May, Tom Brady, he sees ghosts. It started in 2010 with the Jets. They played him later in that year, and you know what happened? Tom Brady went like 23 or 33, something like that, for 400-plus yards, 4 TDs. They put up 55 on the Pittsburgh Steelers. You see ghosts? No. I don't see ghosts, but I do see some dead people, and it's in your secondary, right? Because I just torched you guys. I don't know why you would ever add fuel to that fire. Like, that's the most motivated, most buttoned-up team in football.
Yeah.
Why would you allow them? Because bulletin board material, here's how it works in my estimation. You don't ever sit there during the course of a game and go, man, Tony Gonzalez said this. Like, you're not sitting there in the third quarter on the bench or in the huddle go, remember what so-and-so said? You know what it does? Hones your players in during the week of preparation. Gets them focused in the week of preparation.
Yeah.
And if you're focused in the week of preparation and you've dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's, you know what you're going to do? You're going to play better on Sundays. Mm-hmm. That's what bulletin board material does for you.
Yeah, it just improves your routine. And but what, is Giselle really worth $400 million?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
God, dog. Anyway.
That's good stuff. Tom on alert.
That's why Tom's got it. He's not buying it. He's not going anywhere. No, but I think, like you said, with Tom Brady, of all people to talk trash to, and I'm going to go two ways on this, but all people to talk trash to, you don't talk trash to that guy coming from where he's come from. The 6th-round draft choice. Nobody thought he was going to make it. This guy's got an incredible chip on his shoulder, and you don't get rid of a chip. When you come in, when you go through that bad experience, like I went through my second year, and then you said I was going to be a bust. You never forget about it. You never forget about it, and it stays with you. And that's why I don't know why you would ever talk trash to this guy. Second thing, though, but I don't mind them talking trash. If you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, they have been beat up. They have been the laughing stock of the NFL. The Cleveland Browns and the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think if someone told you that they would be in this position at the beginning of the season, not too many people were saying that, and you would probably laugh at them and go, no way they're going to be in the AFC Championship game, but they're here, and they got there by acting this way. And so I don't see why they're going to stop it now. They feed off of Jalen Ramsey. He is the leader of that organization, that building. I've heard it. He runs that, and they let him say whatever he wants to say, and the team feeds off of him, and that's what brought him here. So I don't see why they would change it at this point. I think that's the only shot they have because they can't be humble now. Keep doing what got you there.
My point is Mark's point. Swagger, to me, works on game day. Humility works on all the other days.
Yeah.
And so you need to embrace humility during the week, and then on game day have all the swagger and all that. But so I agree. I think to Colin's point, 2 different tones have been set. We got the most swagger, and New England, we're gonna prepare, and we'll see you on Sunday. I like that mentality. All right, we're joined now by Fox NBA analyst Chris Broussard and the founder of the Big Lead, Jason McIntyre. Let's move to the Cleveland Cowherds, where the Warriors beat the Cavaliers last night, sweeping the season 2-0, the series 2-0, and handing LeBron and company their 4th straight loss. Cleveland has looked out of sync for much of the year, and reportedly Cavaliers players are starting to express concern that their problems aren't just going to go away. Not that LeBron James sounds all that worried.
It's a good game for us, for 36 minutes maybe 40 minutes. We had some opportunities, but we weren't able to cash in. Like our effort tonight, and if we continue on that going into our next few games, then I like where we are.
Cowherd, you and LeBron and Broussard are the only unconcerned people in the world of basketball. Why are you unconcerned?
Because Vegas has figured this team out. Now, the Cavs have been getting crushed, and yet here's the best basketball team in a decade, and the line's 5 points. Why? Because the Cavs are 11-11 against 500-plus teams. They played Golden State close twice. This is January. LeBron considers the regular season mostly tedious because he's now judged solely on the playoffs. I watched that game.
So he didn't give a great effort last night. He wasn't all in on that last night.
No, he's not all in big chunks of the regular season.
Last night, he wanted that desperately.
Well, he did for about 36 minutes, and then the basket got small. But I came away from that game, and my takeaway was they're getting there. Give Isaiah Thomas about 12 more games. They're getting there. Still have the trading deadline. Very hopeful. This Cavs team won 18-19 earlier this year. They've shown you they can turn it on and off the last 4 or 5 years.
Why wouldn't your takeaway be, wow, they got no shot against Golden State?
Well, nobody has a shot against Golden State. Nobody's beating Golden State unless they get Paul George in Cleveland. I don't think anybody's
So that's concern.
Well, that's what it's become. It hasn't become, can Cleveland beat Golden State? It has become, can Cleveland win the East? Because we know they're losing the finals.
Yeah.
Whoever comes out of East is losing the finals.
Right.
So that is concern. But now I think we're just talking about, are they the best team in the East? I'm with you mostly. Here's where I'm a little bit concerned.
The bar's being lowered.
It has.
Go ahead. You and Colin are lowering the bar. Go ahead.
It has. It just, unfortunately, that's what it is. Here's my one concern I have with this team. I don't believe that from my conversations with people, from this article that was in Cleveland.com and ESPN.com about players wondering if their problem is fixable, I don't believe they think they can beat Golden State. And so the last thing they probably want, not the last thing, but the second to last thing, would be to get to the finals and get swept or beaten handily in 5 games again. They can't be looking forward to that. So I wonder, when they get to the playoffs, will their motivation be at its peak? The last 3 years after mediocre regular seasons, once they got to the playoffs, they thought they could win it all.
Yeah.
With good reason, and they had motivation. Now, if they get there, what will their motivation be?
Concern to me.
Yes, it is concern. Like, hey, just for the note, Broussard, the Cavs are 1-6 against the top 3 teams in the East and West. So, and the only win was opening night against Boston, the Gordon Hayward game. But I want to focus on the word worried here, guys.
Oh, worried. Yeah.
I'm reading some self-help books in 2018, and worry about things you can control. So that's why I don't think LeBron necessarily is worried. LeBron, what are you doing? 27, 8-8, MVP season. He can't control what they're going to do at the deadline, can he, Cowherd? He's not running the show anymore. He didn't trade Kyrie Irving. I technically don't think LeBron is worried. I think the rest of that team is totally panicked. Yeah. I think they don't know what LeBron's future holds. I think there is a lot of concern in the locker room, but LeBron himself, he's fine. He's an MVP.
Here's the thing. By the way, LeBron, it is good because LeBron's not being quoted. Your lead-in is members of the organization are freaking out. Yeah, LeBron's
not know who they are.
Remember, LeBron goes on Instagram and Twitter and does these cryptic messages. This is to the media. This doesn't seem to me like it was LeBron venting.
I like your point. This sounds like mystical. It ain't my fault. Seriously, it ain't my fault. Yeah. I didn't trade Kyrie Irving.
I got 32 points last night.
And there may be some truth to that, but again, as I'm concerned, just like I think I heard Charles Barkley and some of the TNT crew start talking last night, I don't know if they're coming out of the East. There's that kind of concern. Because when LeBron can't win a championship, he can go haywire on you in the playoffs.
See, here's what they need to think about to get their ultimate motivation that they're going to need to get out of the East. They need to understand losing to Kyrie Irving and the Celtics is worse than losing to Golden State in the finals. You would be better off winning the East and getting swept again than losing to Boston in the second round or the conference finals or whatever, that would not be a good look for the Cavs and especially LeBron.
Don't you believe, Chris, that eventually this is going to become LeBron versus Dan Gilbert? Dan's going to say, well, LeBron, you wouldn't tell me what you're doing. How could I trade for Paul George? How could I trade for
No, it's already,
DeAndre
I mean,
Jordan?
it's not public, but that's what it is. LeBron and I believe some other players want them to give up that first pick, the Brooklyn pick, to go out and get a player like a Paul George. Dan Gilbert and I get it.
Yeah.
Cleveland's saying, look, that's our future. And here's the deal. People are saying, oh, Brooklyn's actually playing pretty well. That pick would be 7th or 8th right now. It's not the number 1 pick. When they picked in 2011 and got Kyrie, it was the 8th pick. But in the lottery, it became the 1st pick. Same thing in 2014. They used it on Anthony Bennett. Bad choice. But it was the 9th pick, and it ended up being the 1st. So they're thinking about that. Like, you never know how the ball's going to bounce.
All right, let's move to the Staples Center where Blake Griffin got ejected from a heated matchup against his old teammate Chris Paul and the Rockets last night. L.A. beat Houston on the court. They almost got beat after the game when reportedly Chris Paul, James Harden, and a couple of other Rockets stormed the Clipper locker room. Doc Rivers addressed the incident in his post-game presser.
Let's put it like this. Our team was in our locker room. That's all I'll say. I'll let you do the rest of the investigation. I will say their entire team was not in their locker room.
We were where we were supposed to be. We were in our locker room. So, whatever happens over there, I mean, we can't control what anybody else does. We controlled what we did. We were in our locker room. Everybody was in our seats. That was it. You gotta ask them.
Chris, did things get a little chippy in the locker room right there after the game?
I don't know. You know what I mean? We took our loss, you know what I mean? Tough loss. Get up out of here. You know what I mean? I think it's ice headed to Houston.
Whitlock, did the Rockets look childish last night?
They look foolish, like spoiled brat losers. Chris Paul, what is he doing to his – he's got a great reputation. He comes to L.A., gets his butt spanked by a team that seems to be coming together a little bit, getting healthy. And so now he and James Harden after the game, this is just crazy. And it's hard. This is why it's hard for a lot of people to take the Rockets seriously. They just don't carry themselves in a serious manner all the time.
What about Blake Griffin bumping Mike D'Antoni? Isn't that an issue? Like
Not to me.
To me, that was a big takeaway I had in this game. What are you doing? Like
he bumped Mike D'Antoni.
Yeah, that's not acceptable. Did you see D'Antoni's reaction?
Yeah.
So I would argue that Blake Griffin started this. That's what Trevor Ariza.
That's on the court.
D'Antoni wasn't one of the people that
No,
went to
a coach would not go. And I don't think Chris Paul, by the way.
They caping up for D'Antoni.
No, Chris Paul didn't go over there to fight. Chris Paul went over there to make sure Trevor Ariza didn't fight.
You really?
I don't know about that,
You guys think Chris Paul, the Player Association president, is going to get into a fight?
This is a guy who feuded
Chris
with
is as
DeAndre.
competitive as any player in the league. I believe he was frustrated. He was embarrassed that he came back here to L.A., the team he demanded to be traded from, and lost. And it wasn't even a full L.A. team. DeAndre Jordan didn't even play, and you still lost. So I think that's what fueled this. And Whitlock, you're right. It looked terrible. I mean, this is ridiculous. And to your point, we've talked about, is James Harden clutch? Is Chris Paul clutch? What championship caliber team do you see doing stuff like this?
Hey, but Chris, listen, Chris Paul is definitely at fault here. This is a guy who, in L.A., feuded with Blake Griffin. And did you hear what he said last night? He said the Clippers are Lou Williams' team. That's a direct shot at Blake Griffin. I mean, like, that's so petty. And Chris Paul, remember, he had problems with DeAndre Jordan on the way out the door with Doc Rivers and Austin Rivers. And this Clippers team, I think we undersold, because we all killed Doc Rivers last year, remember? We were like, this guy, you got to get rid of him. Doc Rivers has been incredible. They're a 500 team with like, basically NBDL players on their team. They got guys off the street I've never heard of. C.J. Williams, a bunch of guys coming out of nowhere. And they're fighting that they would never do. Blake Griffin was known as a soft guy. Remember, people would take shots at him, and he was like kind of a softy. He looked tough last night. I know it was against Trevor Ariza, but he wasn't backing down.
They did call the police back.
They did call the police. He did need some backup.
He stayed glued to his seat.
This is all on Chris Paul. And what kind of suspension do you give him for like you said, the president of the Players Association going to look for a fight? You know, after the game, that's classless. I think he's got to get at least 2 games.
I think all 4 Rockets players should get 2 games, in my opinion. Because you have to send a message that's going to deter them from ever doing something like this
And this is a guy who's never gotten out of the second round of the playoffs. On video tribute night for Chris Paul at Staples last night, he gets all angry. And
I'm not 1,000% sure on the suspensions. I don't know if we're going to make too much of this, but I will say this. They're going to play again. Barkley and Shaq made fools of the Clippers last night, which will gas them up. Chris Paul's embarrassed, hyper-competitive. Harden is a bit of a lunatic. So we could have a fight on the court, and so I kind of go back. I wouldn't want to see a suspension, but you probably have to try to prevent something from happening the next time these two teams meet.